Michael Grubb, Evolved Ministry. We're still in the conspiracy section. And this particular section is going to be about aliens and UFOs. We're only going to go, surface area deep with all of this, and hopefully you've been ascertaining throughout this entire conspiracy section that the main points that I'm trying to get across is that obsessing over these conspiracies or focusing all your attention towards these conspiracies are actually dangerous for the mind. It's one of those things where if you are constantly focusing your energy towards the most negative possible stuff, then what you're doing is you're stewing. And what that ends up doing is through your adrenal glands, that's releasing all sorts of stress hormones into your system. Stress hormones being like cortisol, for instance. That's a stress hormone that goes into your system, and then essentially your heart starts to beat faster. Your system kind of goes out of its normal regulation. And when your body is being filled with all of this and all the negativity, then you're not going to be able to think right, you're not going to be able to concentrate right. Essentially, all sorts of physiological changes are occurring within your body, and it's really not the best, especially in terms of being able to ascertain logical conclusions. So, let's jump right into this. UFOs and the conspiracy. Are there UFOs? I can say truly from personal experience, yes. Okay, I've been very close. I've had my own personal experiences that I can verify. I'm not going to ask anyone to believe me on just that alone. As a matter of fact, I don't care if anyone believes me, whether I tell you that I have an experience or not, because that was something that was personal, it was for me, and I guess if it was meant for the entire world, then the entire world would have had their own interaction. Nonetheless, on my particular end of the equation, yes, they're real. Do I spend my time and all my energy obsessing about it? Well, there was a time when it first happened that I did. So, about a year and a half to 2 years, I was pretty focused on going out and seeing crafts or going out and having experiences. And as many people already know, that brought the U.S. military. I've still got tons of videos on YouTube that shows the military circling over my house multiple times, and it's tight circles. I've got all sorts of videos that will back that. So that brought a few things too, and it changed my perspective. It altered my worldview and basically turned everything upside down. So, are they there? Yes. Do we really expect the United States military or the United States government to validate that? They may never validate it, but you're talking about a country that lies so much that if they do validate it, you might want to rethink what you actually believe, because if they turn around and decide one day, oh yeah, they're real, and they've been here, and we've been trying to engineer their weapon systems or their propulsion technology, but we can't, yada yada blah blah. If they start coming out with that, then there's probably an agenda behind it, and it's probably something you shouldn't believe. So like I said, if they decide to one day just come out and validate it, then maybe that's the exact thing that you don't want. But nonetheless, there's probably multiple reasons that the United States decides to keep it hush-hush, even when other governments choose to come out and say, yes, this is actually happening. Number one, you got to consider the fact that people panic a lot, and for very little, let alone panicking for the idea that there may be intelligences out there that may be greater than their own, that have been watching and have been interacting with certain humans for a while. That may turn things upside down. If you remember back when Orson, well, you obviously don't remember this, but this is in history, okay? Orson Welles read H.G. Wells' novel over the airwaves, War of the Worlds, and then people actually flipped out. That was a pretty good litmus test as to what could occur if people believe that aliens were actually here, or if aliens were supposedly attacking. It's more likely going to be humans attacking anything. Aliens really at least my particular interaction with them. As you can see, I'm still here and intact, so nothing bad has happened to me. But I can tell you, on this particular planet, I've had people try to beat me with baseball bats. People, mankind, humans, stab me with knives, shoot at me. So I can tell you for sure that my interactions with any outside intelligences have left me pretty normal, stable, whatever. It's my interactions with human beings that turn things upside down for a little bit. So I've had definitely more physical attacks from humans than extraterrestrials. There's conspiracy theories out there that state that there's certain types of aliens, like reptilians, that have come here, and these reptilians have created some sort of a treaty with the United States military that allows the aliens to abduct people at will in exchange for greater technology, like warfare technology, etc. Maybe. I mean, that's certainly a popular opinion, and a lot of people want to believe that, but if these aliens were supposedly far more advanced, it would make no sense for them to make a treaty with any government that they could easily squash if there was any sort of resistance whatsoever. It would be kind of like me making a treaty with the queen ant of an anthill and saying, in exchange for my being able to come here and pick up any ant that I choose, you and I have a contract with each other. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I could just walk up and step on the anthill now, couldn't I? And what purpose would it benefit me to have a treaty with the queen ant? Are they going to give me currency? Are they going to give me gold? I could just take that now, couldn't I? So that doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it doesn't really wash. But like I said, there's a lot of people who would like to believe such things. When you think of it in terms of the mind, human beings tend to humanize everything. So for instance, their God is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus. They have to put a human face to map out what they believe that their God should look like. And this is the same thing that we do with aliens or anything outside of this place. We always put and attach human characteristics and features when there may be nothing like that. They may think absolutely nothing like us. God may think absolutely nothing like the way that we think. You know, the way we try to put everything into categories and then neatly label them, it doesn't really wash if you try to put it in the perspective of other tiers of intelligences. There's plenty of intelligences out there that don't have to take a form whatsoever, and I would suspect that if God was a real God, it wouldn't need to do so either. Now, we also have the common perception that there's alien mind control. So alien mind control exists amongst the masses, and that the United States government have basically learned mind control from these particular intelligences, including Adolf Hitler when he first started with the SS rituals of mind control back then. Okay, so it's true, they actually did have scientists that were dedicated towards psychotronic warfare and mind warfare. So supposedly through the Thule Society, I think that's what it was called, Thule Society, Hitler had made, I guess, a whole bunch of connections that allowed him to go to Tibet. He became fascinated with Tibet for the reasons of the Nordics, okay, the supposed blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall alien race that looks a lot like human beings. And supposedly he went to Tibet and he learned a few things about, I guess, certain visitors that had come here, and it was that gave him the whole idea of creating the master race of blonde-haired, blue-eyed soldiers, supermen, that sort of thing. Well, once the SS organization of the Nazi regime, when the Nazi regime supposedly fell, because they're still alive and well today, but when the Nazi regime supposedly fell, they incorporated or integrated with the United States Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, and then that was what became the CIA. And subsequently after that, they established the National Security Act, which allowed them to do a bunch of covert government activities without having to respond or report to the American public. So they did, in fact, start working with a bunch of mind control oriented issues, technology, that sort of stuff. Now, whether they got it from aliens, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But I would surmise that most of the outside intelligences wouldn't be so quick to share such information, especially when that information are on wavelengths that they can control and keep away from mankind. That would be kind of like these beings deciding to open up these particular dimensions and saying to these psychopathic human beings, yeah, come in here, walk through the door, and we'll show you everything that we've got. And that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, there's certain ways that mankind can perpetrate mind control over their fellow man. I mean, hypnotism actually exists. And to a certain degree, we do it on a daily basis when we're trying to influence people to get the things that we want. Okay, so business to business, corporation to corporation, all the way down to supervisor and employee. To a certain degree, there are elements of mind control that get utilized daily. Does that mean that it has to come from alien intelligences? I don't think so. Could it? It might. Lord knows that the place that we live in isn't exactly what we've been told that it is, although it certainly appears to be so. All this stuff appears to be solid, and, it helps us forget that these are actually crisscrossing frequencies that are vibrating and resonating at a different frequency that allows us to entertain the idea that I'm sitting on the couch and not a part of the couch. So, I do, from my knowledge, I am aware that such technology does exist, whether it be considered alien or whether it is considered to be human. Such technology does exist, but aliens aren't exactly alien. Everything has its own form, but everything is compressed intelligence. And intelligence isn't limited to just, I guess, what we would consider to be biological systems. Intelligence is embedded through everything. So when we talk about mind control, we have to really define the idea of what is the mind in the first place, and then what is control, and then how does one object, okay, and you go to Isaac Newton laws of force, and you go to that and you see how one object can influence another just by movement alone. And so once we really break it down to those sort of things and then add will into the scenario, then we have a whole different world to look at. And we have to determine how much of what's going on is our own free will, or how much of what is going on is someone else's will enacting upon our own. So control and mind control is a very broad subject. A lot of people think that IceCat or Sura or HARP are devices that came from extraterrestrial intelligences. Well, the fact of the matter is all that stuff came after a guy named Nikola Tesla invented that stuff in the 1800s. So human beings have had access to knowledge like that for a little while. It's being implemented here in the here and now, but human beings have had it. Now, whether Nikola Tesla was influenced by extraterrestrial intelligences, that's remained to be seen, because as far as I know, I've done some research, and there are at least rumors and theories that he did make contact. Did he? Who knows? Now we entertain the idea that aliens are supposedly gods. The word gods needs to be dropped from the human vocabulary. Truly. because mankind is too willing to fall to their knees to anything that shows it just a slightly bit more power than what it had or had access to before. Human beings are very quick to worship anything that they believe was previously unseen but is now there in front of their eyes. Human beings even worship other human beings. So, I'm sure that there are plenty of beings out there that we would consider to be extraterrestrial, that if they were to show themselves or if they were to show some of their technology, that mankind would be very willing to bow down and call them gods. Were they our gods from before? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Did they help us build the pyramids? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. What are the pyramids? I can tell you that the pyramids are, if you ever look at a computer chip, that'll tell you pretty much what the pyramids are. The pyramids were points upon the earth which are set in grid formation that essentially translate and send information from one pyramid system to the next. Very much like what a motherboard does with all the little nodes and all the little squares and those little points where energy is sent, information is stored, and then sent to another location. It's about as simple as it is. Now, maybe intelligences from the outside that knew what that was and knew what they were doing when they were creating this little matrix down here, maybe that's exactly what those systems were for. But if we fall to our knees and call everything God that shows us something different, then we're never going to learn what our own fullest potential is. You might find that you have access to abilities that you formerly thought that was only limited to gods. And the thing is it's not limited to gods. All beings, including dogs, cats, slugs, everything has the ability to move energy because they're a part of the energy field. I've seen it. I've seen dogs do it. I've seen cats do it. I've seen birds do it. And the thing is they don't sit and bow down and worship each other because they were able to do it. They just continue to go on about their lives and existences. That's part of being what they are. And it's the same thing with fish. Do you ever see fish bow down and worship other fish because they can swim faster? Nope. They just are what they are. And this is what human beings need to learn to accept, is all beings out there are what they are. And it has nothing to do with gods. It doesn't have to have anything to do with angels. It doesn't have to have anything to do with demons. The human mind has the ability to create many constructs. And so I think we need to back away from the idea that we need to worship something as opposed to give something respect and love. Love and respect for every being out there as opposed to worship or reverence. Is it possible that they were what we used to call gods of the past? Yes, it's very possible. Should we be calling them gods now? No. Otherwise, we will never get the self-respect that we deserve from other intelligences out there as well. There is another issue regarding UFOs, conspiracies, etc., that the government may fabricate an alien invasion in order to usher in a new world order. This is also very possible. They have some pretty interesting technology out there. Again, HARP is one of them. The Large Hadron Collider, of course, is another thing that could be used in conjunction, create some illusions out there. They've got holographic technology out there that, can be beamed right on the sky just like a projector. It's not anything to have any reverence for or anything like that. It's not anything to fear. But could they actually fake an invasion? It's quite possible. They have some pretty nifty technology out there that is anti-gravity. So they could probably send some ships and project some stuff against the sky, and the next thing you know, you're in a full-blown Star Wars movie. Or Independence Day. Could happen. But the fact of the matter is, what is the most important thing in all this? Do you have to fall for it? If it were to exist, let's just say they were to pull this off tomorrow, how would you personally react to it? Would you be cool? Would you be calm? Would you be one of those people that were helping other people figure it out? Or would you be adding to the chaos? Because these are things that people need to really think about in their minds. If such a thing were to happen, are you able to put yourself in that situation, to imagine it, and then to navigate your way out of it? Is there a way out of it? Would something like this actually cause casualties? Who knows? I can see that many of the false flag attacks that happen all around the world, we don't even know if casualties occur or not, because most of us aren't there to see whether or not there were people being drug away, or whether those people were just actors in the first place. In the age of the internet and the age of HD and 3D, anything can be pulled off these days. They've got technology out there, green screens that can make you believe just about anything. So the question is whether you're going to participate in that and be a part of the problem or the solution. Another thing that you could look up is Project Bluebeam. That goes along with the idea of them being able to project images in the sky. So that may also be one of the reasons why the chemtrails exist, although I'm going to tell you that the chemtrails pretty much exist more or less for purposes of actual geoengineering, which is to send sunlight back out into space. That way the sun doesn't melt the ice cap so quickly. But with all that aluminum up there, it can definitely serve to be a projector from the sky as well. Archons and reptilians. So let's talk about this, archons and reptilians. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube where people are watching slowed down footage of stars or presidents, and they focus in on the eyes, and oftentimes what happens, by the way, if you want to know the truth of it, you can film yourself under light, and then when you blink, okay, your pupils have to regulate the amount of light that's coming in. And so for a moment, they're going to either go from slits to open, or from open back to slits. This is a normal thing that happens not only with the lens of a camera, but it also happens with the eyes. So that's what your pupils are doing, is they're regulating the amount of light that's coming in, right? So yes, you're going to see that. If you were to film yourself, you will get the same result. Another thing that I want human beings to understand, that during the embryo stage of life, the human being actually has a reptilian tail. There's a theory that we go through all the stages of evolution as an embryo and then turning into a fetus, yada yada blah blah. Well, if we share genetics with everything here, then we also have reptilian in our own blood. So in other words, every time you look into the mirror, you're looking at a reptilian. If you look at a cat has eyes very much just like a snake. But that cat is a warm-blooded animal versus the snake being cold-blooded, right? So again, as you can see though, they share this trait, the slit in the eyes, right? Well, human beings share that trait as well. Lions have that trait, dogs have that trait. It's across the board. So we have to be very careful when we're pointing fingers at people and then calling them reptilians. It's actually a very negative and irresponsible thing to do. Now, is it possible that reptilians are here? I don't take out the possibility that anything can occur, because anything can occur. I've seen some things down here that I don't need to go into, but things that people would never believe that actually occurred and transpired in real life. Reptilians, archons. I guess archon is just the idea of an overlord. Well, we have human quote-unquote overlords down here, people who put those people on a pedestal. And then, of course, the people seem to allow it. So when there's royalty, when there's celebrities, we tend to put them on thrones or things that we believe to be so much more superior than ourselves. And this, of course, doesn't do much for us in terms of creating the idea that there is an equal species, that we are autonomous in our own right and may not necessarily need to be ruled. So again, we tend to put elites, aliens, or anything that we perceive to have greater or higher intelligence than ourselves above us. And unfortunately, this doesn't do much in terms of the idea of separation. In fact, we perpetuate and reinforce class separation by doing so. If we didn't put them on such pedestals or thrones above us, there wouldn't be this idea that they've achieved something greater, or that they've naturally are just on a higher level, because in terms of genetics, everything down here runs roughly the same. And so everyone has strong points, everyone has weak points. And if people are not ever able to be shown their strongest points, then in a world which only recognizes certain jobs or careers as important versus others which are deemed unimportant, and at that point we're always going to be in this situation where the ruling class will have a legitimized reason for thinking themselves as above us. So the idea of class separation is the very thing that perpetuates this nonsense. And when people are constantly feeding into it and they support, well, all of the things that keep a ruling class in the power, all of the products, all of the entertainment, those are the very things, when you're funneling your money into it, you're ensuring that the class structure remains intact the way it is now. Okay, this idea also gives the impression, especially to the elites, that we are a people that need and deserve to be ruled. So this is something that I think everyone should look at very carefully. If we never do anything outside of what the elites present to us, if we never make choices that don't reinforce the idea that they are in a superior position, if we don't do these things, then of course the playing field levels out. But if we continue to do it, and it seems like much of society has said, okay, yeah, provide us our goods, provide us our entertainment, give us these things, and we will be passive. We won't ask for anything more. We won't try to be anything more. And then the minute that bottom falls out, though, all those falsities come crashing down. That's when society is going to look a whole lot different than it does now. But right now, we reinforce all of those very things. And again, it shows us that we are deserving of being put right where we're at. If you consider yourself to be subjugated, or if you consider yourself to be inferior, well, there's probably a very good reason, and everything that you do on a daily basis reinforces that. So that's something to think about. As far as elites go, I mean, we don't have to worry about alien overlords when we willingly bow to elites all the time. Why even throw aliens into the picture? Why even throw reptilians into the picture when we've got human beings on this planet that the rest of the mankind who share space, oxygen, food, everything with, and we're constantly placing those people on a more recognized pedestal than ourselves. And at this point, you have to ask yourself too whether human beings have really done anything to show that they want to evolve past this. Because really, we haven't done anything that proves that we want anything more, especially as a collective. I mean, there's quite a few individuals out there who they feel that where they come from and the place where that they were at before does not align with the place that they're in now and the type of world that they're in. And I understand that. But how many people are making the necessary changes within their lives that are going to foster a change within the environment? How many people are actually out there trying to make a difference? It's one thing to theorize about it. It's another thing to philosophize about it. But it's an entirely different thing to walk out and actually make actions and make choices and actions that change the environment around you. So we can't really fault anyone else. I mean, there's always the idea that, oh look, the Anunnaki or something like that are wielding controls over humanity, but that doesn't stop you from walking outside your door and picking up litter. It doesn't stop you from walking outside your door and taking care of homeless people. It doesn't stop you from going out and talking with people and making friends and forming a community. You've got all sorts of things that are right there in your immediate environment that you can change. And there's things that you can do and it shows you directly that you are in charge of your own ability to make choices. There's not something there beaming information into your head telling you to do something. You have all the ability and all the right and all the autonomy to go out there and do things that will empower change if this is what you're really about. So, like I said, it's one thing to sit within your home thinking about it, reading about these things on the internet, brooding about the fact that it exists or doesn't exist, or contemplating whether aliens are there, beaming stuff into your head. None of that matters when you have the ability to stand up and do anything you choose to do. All the other stuff is just fodder.